You lie down and let the room exhale. Edges soften, chalk lines, smudged by a gentle thumb. The pillow receives your head and makes a shallow harbor. Your shoulders unhook themselves from the day, one small muscle at a time. You are not leaving the world so much as dimming it, as if drawing a velvet curtain across a bright window. Breathing becomes the conductor now, lowering the volume of every instrument inside you. With each slow inhale, your ribs open like a book. With each unhurried exhale, the story settles. The parasympathetic system, the body's built-in brake, presses down, and heartbeats spread like stepping stones across a stream. Blood vessels relax, warming hands and feet. Core temperature dips by a whisper, the way a lake cools at evening. Melatonin, the night's courier, rises like tidewater, guided by a small clock that listens for darkness and remembers the sun. The clock has a name, suprachiasmatic nucleus, but you meet it as a feeling night taking its post. Hours ago, daylight poured through your eyes and told this clock to keep you awake. Now darkness speaks the next line, and the clock answers by loosening wakefulness. The city of your body turns off side streets one by one. Shop lights go dark in your jaw. Elevators rest in your spine. Networks that manage goals and plans dim their lamps. Meandering paths open. Thoughts become birds released at dusk. They do not vanish. They widen their circles, touching trees you forgot were there. Alpha waves roll through the cortex like a tide at sundown. Behind them, slower theta ripples begin to pull the shoreline into something quieter. You do not need the terms to feel their rhythm. Science is a map of what your body has practiced since infancy, a descent that feels like floating. The thalamus, relay for sights and sounds, draws its shutters partway. Street noise still arrives, but it loses urgency, like a distant train behind fog. The prefrontal judges, strict by day, loosen their robes and sit down. Vigilance slackens its jaw. As you rest, the neck no longer stands guard. Gravity takes a kinder role, arranging you into alignment. Proprioception, the sense of where each limb begins and ends, fades to watercolor. The bed seems larger, the room wider, the self gently blurred at the edges. Muscles empty their pockets of tension, shoulders unspool, lids close without argument. Breath remains the metronome. Inhale, cool air enters like night through a window. Exhale, warmth leaves with the soft satisfaction of finishing a page. The diaphragm draws a slow bow across an invisible cello, and organs answer with a hum of cooperation. You are not controlling it, you are consenting to it. Control belonged to daylight, night is for a lamp. You may notice small twitches in hands or legs, tiny releases like missing a step on a stair. These are hypnic jerks, harmless reminders that muscles are settling even as awareness floats. Somewhere inside, a guard double-checks the doors and then joins the others on their stool. The show has not started, but the audience has grown quiet. Memory walks the aisles collecting tickets. Experiences are counted, stacked, arranged. Some will be filed into long shelves. Some will be set in a basket marked "Let Go." Emotion stops to ask how you are, not like a hurried coworker, but like an old friend on a porch at night. You do not need sentences. The body understands nods and sighs. If worry tries to speak, give it a seat near the exit. Tell it there will be time tomorrow. Tonight belongs to restoration. Muscles rebuild where effort wore them thin. The immune system compares notes in a whisper. Digestion slows into a contented murmur. You are not drifting away from your life, you are drifting back into the support that makes life possible. Outside, the world continues at its own volume, but your inner soundproofing grows thicker. The thalamus dims more lamps, letting fewer signals through. The room becomes a sanctuary of ordinary darkness. A truck tire hisses somewhere. The mind notes it and lets it go. A memory taps your shoulder. You nod and watch it dissolve. The curtain is almost drawn. You sense a shore you cannot yet see. On that shore, images will begin to flicker. Half-formed scenes, small colors, a voice that might be yours or might belong to someone you have not met. This is not yet a dream. It is the walkway to the dream, lit by lanterns spaced just far enough apart to keep you curious. Science would call the lanterns hypnagogic imagery, brief snapshots, as the brain shifts its patterns. But for you, they are the earliest stars after sunset. When you do not chase them, they multiply. When you do not grab them, they offer their quiet. Your eyelids stay closed and behind them a private sky takes shape. Somewhere in the background, a part of you monitors breathing and safety like a lighthouse that does not sleep. If a real alarm appears, light will surge through the system and you will wake. Trust in that lighthouse lets the rest of you release. Trust is the hinge on which the door of sleep turns. You oil that hinge with routine and the simple kindness of stopping. Your bed becomes a raft. The raft becomes a small planet with its own gravity, holding you gently at the center. Thoughts that arrived like flocks thin into single, unhurried birds. They glide once across the lake and land. The day is escorted to the door. It nods and steps into the hallway. The room is yours and it is quiet. A final check passes through the muscles like a soft wave through grass. Jaw unclenches, tongue rests like a boat on still water. Hands find a neutral shape. Legs agree to be heavy. Spine lengthens as if remembering it was once a reed in a slow river. The mind notices this harmony and lowers its lamps. Now you feel the slide of the stage lights toward darkness. The orchestra is not silent, it is tuned to a different key. You, the listener, become the listening itself. Breaths line up like shells on a shore. Skin cools by a whisper. Everything that must continue, continues. Everything that can pause, pauses. You hover at the seam where waking loosens, and something softer begins to hold. A few stray thoughts, like late audience members, take their seats. The curtain's hem brushes the floor. Somewhere, just beyond the dim, the first images begin to quicken, as if a projector were warming. You are almost at the threshold where the story writes itself. The river carries you without effort. The night opens a page, and the ink finds its path. You tilt toward the edge between worlds, where sparks and whispers meet you, leading you onward. You stand at the threshold, eyes closed, watching the first stars of thought appear. This is the edge between waking and sleep, where images arrive before words. Step with me onto that twilight bridge, into hypnagogia, where the night first begins to speak. You are not fully awake, yet not fully asleep. You hover in a place with no clocks, no boundaries, only soft edges where the day slowly melts into night. Your eyes are closed, but shapes drift across the darkness, faint ripples of color, floating fragments of scenes, the outline of something that could be a face or a cloud. They appear without being summoned, like visitors at an open gate. This is hypnagogia, a name that sounds like a spell, but in truth it is simply the brain loosening its grip on the waking world. Neurons fire in scattered bursts, creating brief, dreamlike flashes that are neither fully imagined nor fully remembered. It is as if the mind is testing its paints before beginning a vast mural. You might hear something too, a voice calling your name, a soft hum, the echo of footsteps that exist only inside your head. These auditory fragments are harmless ghosts, born from the brain's relaxed filtering system. In waking life, the thalamus, your mind's gatekeeper, screens out irrelevant sounds and sights. But now, the gate is left ajar, and stray impressions drift in like leaves on a slow-moving river. Thoughts, once orderly, begin to slip their leash. You remember a conversation from years ago, but suddenly the voices are speaking in a different language. A street from your childhood twists into a winding corridor inside a library you have never visited. This blending of the real and the impossible is effortless here. You do not question it because here there is no need for logic. Your body is deeply still, yet small movements sometimes break through, a twitch of the fingers, a sudden jerk of the leg. Scientists call these hypnic jerks, tiny misfires as your muscles surrender to rest. They are the last sparks of a campfire before the embers settle. Light itself changes here, though your eyes are shut. Behind your eyelids, you may see glowing patterns, delicate like stained glass or bold like lightning. These are phosphenes, the visual echoes of neural activity. They are not dreams yet. They are sketches, hints of what the night may decide to create. Time behaves strangely in hypnagogia. You might feel that you have been here for a heartbeat or for an hour, though the clock outside marks only minutes. The brain's sense of time begins to blur as it loosens from the structure of wakefulness. This is why artists, musicians and inventors have cherished this state. In it, ideas can drift into view without the rigid frame of schedules or rules. In these moments, the default mode network, the web of brain regions active during daydreaming and self-reflection, hums quietly, connecting distant dots. It is the same network that fuels imagination in the daytime, but here it runs without interruption. Images arise not as deliberate choices, but as gifts. You simply notice them. Some hypnagogic visions are tender, the soft face of a loved one, a remembered scent of rain. Others are strange, like a door that opens to reveal the sea, or a hand made of glass. There is no right or wrong in what appears. There is only observation. You are the guest, but also the observer, and sometimes, if you are very still, the guide. The body's rhythms continue their descent. Heart rate eases, breathing deep. The line between the inside and outside world fades. The sense of self, the constant narrator of your day, grows quiet. Without that narrator, the mind is free to wander in ways it cannot when awake. You may notice how quickly the images change, each scene dissolving before it is complete. This is because the brain has not yet built the stable stage of REM sleep. Here, the canvas is fluid, the brushstrokes uncommitted. It is a rehearsal, not the performance. And yet, sometimes these fragments are more vivid than the dreams to come, sharper in color, stranger in form, more startling in their honesty. In ancient times, hypnagogia was thought to be a sacred threshold, a place where messages from the divine could slip through. Even now, in modern science, we see its value. Experiments show that catching yourself in this state, hovering without fully falling asleep, can lead to creative breakthroughs, sudden insights, or the solving of problems you could not untangle in daylight. The mind, freed from its usual rails, finds new paths in the undergrowth. You might recall moments like this without knowing their name, times when, just before sleep, you thought of something beautiful or useful, only to lose it upon waking. That is the nature of this play. It is like holding a handful of mist. You feel it, but it slips through fingers not meant to grasp it for long. If you wish to linger here, you can. Focus gently on your breathing, or on the faint lights behind your eyelids. Do not force the images, simply welcome them as they arrive. The more you notice without trying to hold on, the more they will come. Eventually, hypnagogia gives way to the deeper currents of sleep. The fragments slow their rotation, and the gatekeeper thalamus draws its shutters fully. Sensory input from the outside world fades almost completely, and the brain begins its descent into the first true stages of the night's architecture. But for now, you are still at the edge. 1 foot in the waking world, 1 foot in a place where gravity is optional and thought can become light. You feel yourself leaning toward the darker waters, ready to be carried without effort. And as the last flickers of color fade, you sense something new on the horizon, a rhythm deepening, a shift in the body's inner music. The orchestra inside you is preparing for its first great movement, the slow, harmonious waves of early sleep, where the foundation for dreaming will be laid. You let the final fragments dissolve, their shapes folding into the quiet. A deeper current begins to pull you inward, toward a place of slower waves and steadier breath. This is where the night's true symphony begins, in the silent, measured rhythms beneath your skull. You are drifting now, past the soft threshold of hypnagogia, into something deeper. The flashes and fragments from the edge of sleep fade, replaced by a steadier, slower rhythm. Inside your skull, an unseen orchestra begins to play, not with violins or flutes, but with pulses of electricity and ripples of chemistry. It is a performance you have never consciously attended, though you are its sole audience, and its reason for existing. Your brain has always been busy, a city of constant movement. During the day it hums with rapid chatter, neurons firing quickly to process sight, sound, thought, and movement. The tempo is brisk, like a bustling street where everyone hurries to their destination. But now, with your eyes closed and your muscles still, that tempo shifts. The rush-hour traffic of your mind empties. Lights dim in certain districts. Activity becomes deliberate, unhurried, almost ceremonial. This is the onset of non-REM sleep, the first deepening of the night's descent. Brainwaves slow into patterns called theta, then delta. If you could see them on a graph, they would look like wide, rolling hills after the sharp peaks of wakefulness. These waves are not random. They move in coordinated sweeps, like a slow tide washing across the shore of your consciousness. In stage 2 sleep, the music grows more intricate. Bursts of rapid activity, called sleep spindles, appear, brief trills in the otherwise calm melody. They rise and fall within a second, like quick brushstrokes of light across a canvas. Science tells us these spindles help lock memories into place, transferring fragile impressions from the hippocampus the brain's short-term archive, into the more durable vaults of long-term storage. In other words, as you lie here, the orchestra is preserving your day's symphony, ensuring that what matters is not lost in the noise. Alongside the spindles, you'll find something called K-complexes, sudden towering waveforms that appear like deep bass notes in the night score. These are the brain's way of responding to disturbances without waking you. A sound from the street, the creak of a settling wall. The K-complex acknowledges them, decides they are not threats, and lets you stay in your gentle descent. As you sink further, stage 3 arrives, the realm of slow-wave sleep. Here the rhythm is unhurried and powerful, dominated by delta waves. Imagine a great ocean under moonlight, its surface smooth except for long, slow swells that rise and fall in perfect time. In this stage, your body works on repair, muscles mend, tissues renew, immune cells patrol. The conductor has shifted the orchestra toward the deep, resonant tones that allow restoration to happen. All the while, your autonomic system's heart rate, breathing temperature, follow the music's lead. Breaths stretch longer between in-breath and out-breath. Heartbeats move in a calm procession, conserving energy. Even blood pressure drifts lower, like a river that widens and slows as it moves toward the sea. Inside, billions of neurons still speak to one another, but the conversation is quieter now, more purposeful. If wakefulness is like a crowded cafe, slow-wave sleep is like a council gathered in a silent hall, each voice clear and measured. Glial cells, the caretakers of the brain, increase their activity, sweeping away metabolic waste in a process called glymphatic clearance. This nighttime cleaning is essential. It prevents the buildup of harmful proteins and keeps the mind sharp for the day ahead. There is beauty in knowing that this intricate concert happens without your effort. You do not have to remind your brain to send a spindle to sweep away debris, or to slow your heart. The body remembers the score perfectly, even if your conscious mind has never seen the sheet music. The harmony inside you is not just chemical or electrical, it is deeply human. The patterns of your brain waves have been shared by countless sleepers across history. A shepherd resting under a night sky 1,000 years ago, a child napping in a quiet room today, a traveler on a train seat dozing between stations, all of them, in this stage, are joined in the same slow, silent song. Sometimes, if you half wake in this stage, you will notice the heaviness in your limbs, the resistance to opening your eyes. This is the depth of slow-wave sleep anchoring you. It is the body's way of saying, not yet. There is more work to be done here before you run. And so you turn back toward the music, letting it draw you further inward. The orchestra is vast, but every section knows its part. The thalamus, acting as a stage manager, directs signals to where they are needed. The cortex listens, responds, and quiets in turn. The hippocampus hums in the background, filing away experiences. The brainstem keeps time, ensuring that each stage flows naturally into the next. You may not hear this music, but you feel it in the same way you feel the hush before snowfall, or the weight of the ocean when you float on its surface. It is a deep, resonant quiet that reaches places no waking sound can touch. And then, without your noticing, the composition begins to shift. The slow waves do not disappear, they recede, making space for a lighter rhythm. You are not waking, but entering a new movement in the night's performance. The orchestra begins to introduce more variation, more bursts of activity, as if tuning for something brighter, more vivid. Soon you will arrive at the first REM cycle, where the music changes entirely. But for now, you rest in the lingering notes of slow-wave sleep, carried by a tide that knows exactly where it is going. The conductor does not rush. The journey is as important as the arrival. You breathe in, you breathe out, and the waves roll on. The deep, resonant tones begin to soften, replaced by a flicker of something lighter. A different kind of energy stirs, quick, bright, and full of motion. Soon your eyes will dance behind closed lids, and the quiet symphony will give way to the vivid theatre of dreams. You have drifted far from the slow waves of deep sleep. The ocean beneath you shifts. The still tide begins to sparkle with flashes of light. Inside your head, the music quickens, instruments tuning for a different kind of performance. And then, without warning, it begins. Your eyes dart beneath closed lids, moving as if they are following some swift, invisible creature across the horizon. This is rapid eye movement sleep, REM, the stage where the mind becomes a theater without walls. From the outside you seem still, your breath is steady, your limbs heavy, your body almost entirely motionless. But inside there is a kind of storm, a beautiful, electric storm. Neurons fire as rapidly as they do when you are awake, sending signals across the brain in bursts and loops, igniting images, voices, and sensations that feel as real as daylight. It is the paradox of REM. The body lies quiet, almost paralyzed, while the mind runs wild. This stillness is no accident. A protective mechanism in the brainstem, called REM atonia, sends signals that keep most of your voluntary muscles from moving. Without it, you might act out your dreams, running from invisible dangers, or reaching for objects that aren't there. This temporary paralysis is your seatbelt in the theater of the absurd, keeping you safe while the performance unfolds. The scenes that play out now are unlike the fleeting flashes of hypnagogia. They are structured, vivid, immersive. You might find yourself standing in a city you've never seen, yet knowing exactly which street to take. You might be speaking to someone who has been gone for years, hearing their voice with perfect clarity. Or perhaps you are flying, not clumsily, but with the full certainty that you have always known how. In REM sleep, the brain blends memory with imagination, fact with invention. The hippocampus offers fragments of your real life, a face, a room, a melody. The amygdala, charged with emotion, adds intensity, joy so bright it stings, fear so sharp it vibrates in your bones. The visual cortex paints each detail in high resolution, while the prefrontal cortex, the part that questions and reasons, takes a quiet seat at the back. Without that inner critic, nothing in the dream seems impossible. Your heartbeat becomes irregular, sometimes quickening in response to the dream's events. Breathing can grow shallow or deepen suddenly, mirroring the action of the scene. In this way, your body is an audience member who reacts to the drama unfolding, even though it cannot move. The stage may shift in an instant. One moment you are under a soft rain, the next you are on a mountain above the clouds. REM is also a rehearsal space. Some scientists believe these dreams allow you to practice for challenges, to run simulations of survival. You might dream of being chased not because you are in danger but because your brain is testing how you might react. It is the same mechanism that may have kept our ancestors alive, a safe way to prepare for threats without the risk of real harm. Yet dreams in REM are not only about danger, they are also about connection. You revisit people you miss, places you love, moments that shaped you. You try on different futures, imagine alternate paths. The brain experiments with possibilities as if they were costumes, wearing each one just long enough to feel what it might be like to live in that version of the world. This stage is vital for creativity. Here associations form between ideas that might never meet in waking life. A problem you could not solve yesterday might find its answer now, woven into the fabric of a strange dream. History holds countless examples. Musicians waking with melodies, scientists with solutions, artists with visions they could never have painted without the raw material REM provided. Physiologically, REM occurs in cycles, each lasting longer as the night progresses. Your first REM stage may last only a few minutes, but by the early hours of morning it can stretch to nearly an hour. This means that the most elaborate vivid dreams often come in the final chapters of the night's performance. Your brain is saving its longest acts for last, as if reluctant to let you go. If you wake during REM, you are more likely to remember your dream in detail. The emotional tone will linger, sometimes for the whole day. Joy, longing, unease, wonder. This is because the amygdala and other emotional centers are so active during this stage, imprinting the dream's feeling even when the plot slips away. There is something deeply human in this nightly theater. Whether your dreams are joyful or unsettling, they are uniquely yours, shaped by your experiences, your hopes, your fears. And yet REM is a shared human experience. Every sleeper, across every culture and time, has entered this strange immersive state. In the dark, we are all travelers in worlds that vanish at dawn. You may notice that sometimes your dreams carry a logic of their own, a set of rules that feels perfectly consistent until you wake. This is the magic of REM, the suspension of disbelief, so complete that you do not question the impossible. You accept that a friend can transform into a stranger mid-conversation, that you can breathe underwater, that the sun can set in the middle of the day. The dream's truth is self-contained, needing no approval from waking reason. As the REM cycle begins to fade, your brain activity shifts again. The rapid bursts soften, eye movements slow, the theater's lights dim, and the curtain falls on this act. You may slip into another stage of non-REM sleep, only to return to REM later for yet another round of vivid storytelling. Over the course of a night you will cycle through this rhythm 4 or 5 times. Deep rest followed by active dreaming, like a tide that alternates between still water and dancing waves. This balance is essential. Too little REM and emotional regulation suffer. Too little slow wave sleep and physical restoration falters. Together, they form the full symphony of the night. And so you lie here, your body still as stone, your mind alive as fire. The theater of the absurd has played another scene, stitched from your memories and your imagination, from science and mystery alike. You may not remember the details in the morning, but some part of you carries them, the way music lingers in the air long after the musicians have left the stage. As the curtain closes on this vivid act, the storyteller in your mind does not rest. Even now, threads from tonight's performance are being woven into patterns that will outlast the dream itself. In the quiet hours ahead, your brain will turn from spectacle to craftsmanship, the quiet weaving of stories from memory. You are inside the theater of REM now, the stage bright with activity, but there is no playwright sitting in the wings, no careful outline, no written script. And yet a story emerges. It may not follow the rules you know in waking life. Beginnings do not always lead to middles. Middles sometimes fold directly into endings. But it has its own rhythm, its own strange sense of truth. This is your brain's storytelling machinery at work, assembling fragments into something whole enough to feel real. It begins with raw material. All through the day you collect moments without realizing it. The curve of a stranger's smile, the scent of a hallway, the flicker of light across water. Some of these impressions fade quickly, but others are stored, waiting for their cue. In REM sleep, the hippocampus, the brain's memory archivist, opens its shelves and lays these fragments on the table. They are the threads from which the night's story will be spun. But memory alone is not enough. A story needs emotion, and here the amygdala takes its place at the loop. It dyes the threads in strong colors: joy, fear, longing, surprise. This is why your dreams are rarely neutral. They carry a pulse, a temperature. You might dream of something as simple as walking down a street, but if the amygdala has stained that street with unease, the whole scene tilts toward tension. Then the sensory cortices step in, the regions that handle sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. Even in sleep, they can be remarkably active, painting textures and colors into your dream world. You can feel the weight of a book in your hands, hear the crunch of footsteps on gravel, taste the salt of sea air. These sensations are not happening in the world around you. They are being conjured from memory and imagination, woven seamlessly into the unfolding tale. The prefrontal cortex, the rational narrator of your waking hours, mostly steps back during REM. This absence is one reason dreams flow without the limits of logic. You accept impossible events without question, because the part of you that would challenge them is resting. A friend can turn into a bird mid-conversation, and you simply continue talking. A room can tilt sideways and still feel normal. In the dream world, plausibility is not required for truth. As the story takes shape, scenes shift without warning. A beach dissolves into a kitchen, a conversation becomes a song, a familiar face wears an unfamiliar voice. Transitions are fluid here, like edits in a film made by instinct rather than plan. This is because the brain does not assemble dreams in a linear way. Instead, it links associations, one idea sparking another, often skipping over the steps that would connect them in waking thought. Yet there is a kind of hidden logic at work. The associative networks in your brain are like clusters of stars. Some are bright and obvious, connected by short, clear lines. A smell reminds you of a meal, which reminds you of a person. Others are far apart, but in the dream state, the brain's pathways stretch, creating constellations you would never see in daylight. A memory from childhood can connect to an imagined future, and both can merge into a single moment, that feels inevitable while you are inside it. This flexibility is part of what makes REM such fertile ground for creativity. Freed from the rigid editing of waking thought, your mind can experiment. It can place ideas side by side that would normally never meet. It can rewrite history, invent languages, design cities. Many artists and inventors throughout history have credited dreams with their breakthroughs, the brain's storyteller, wandering off the map and returning with something entirely new. In this theater, you are not only the audience, you are also the protagonist. Even when the dream is strange, you are usually inside it, feeling its events from within your own skin. You may also shift perspectives, one moment seeing through your own eyes, the next watching yourself from a distance. These perspective changes are as natural to the dreaming brain as they are rare in waking life. They allow you to explore a story from multiple vantage points, sometimes revealing meanings you could not see otherwise. And while much of the storytelling is built from memory and imagination, some dreams are direct responses to the day's events. Psychologists call this day residue, the leftover fragments from recent experience that find their way into the night's script. A task you left unfinished, a conversation that lingered in your thoughts, even a color you noticed in passing, all may reappear in the dream, though rarely in the exact form they held when you were awake. There are theories about why the brain tells these nightly stories. Some suggest they are a form of emotional processing, a way to rehearse, release, or reshape the feelings you carry. Others propose they help you solve problems, letting the brain test out solutions without real-world consequence. Still others see dreams as a side effect of the brain's housekeeping, the neural equivalent of a computer running background programs. Whatever the exact purpose, the effect is undeniable. Each night, you inhabit worlds that are entirely your own. They are built from the architecture of your mind, furnished with your memories, lit by your emotions, and though most fade quickly upon waking, some leave behind a lasting imprint, like a book you read long ago but still remember in fragments. As you lie here in REM, the storyteller is tireless. It takes no rest between scenes, no pause for planning. Each moment gives rise to the next, as naturally as breathing. You may drift from one setting to another without even noticing the shift, carried along by the current of the narrative. And then, sometimes something remarkable happens, a moment when you realize you are dreaming. This is lucid dreaming, a rare blending of the dreaming brain's creativity with a hint of waking awareness. In that instant, you may be able to shape the story to choose where it goes next. But even if you cannot, the awareness itself is a reminder. This world, for all its vividness, exists entirely within you. Eventually the act draws toward its close. The rapid eye movements slow, the neural storm begins to quiet, and the dream's images lose their sharp. The storyteller does not stop, but its voice lowers, its pace eases. You drift toward another stage of sleep, the plot threads loosening, the details already beginning to dissolve. By morning you may remember only fragments, a single image, a line of dialogue, the feeling of joy or unease. But the work of the storyteller is not wasted. Even when the details vanish, the emotional and cognitive effects remain, shaping your mood, your thoughts, perhaps even your decisions in ways you cannot see. Every night, the storyteller inside you works without audience or applause. It needs no recognition, no written record. It simply tells the next story, and then the next, because that is what it was made to do. And you, whether you remember or not, are always both the listener and the lead character. The storyteller's voice fades, but the threads remain, tucked into the folds of memory and feeling. In the quiet that follows, a different language begins to speak, one made not of plot, but of symbols. Soon, the dream will stop telling you stories directly, and start speaking in images only you can truly understand. You are deep in the night now, carried by stories spun from memory, sensation, and emotion. The question rises quietly, like a ripple beneath still water. Why? Why do you dream at all? Your body needs sleep. That much is clear. But why does the mind wander into vivid worlds instead of lying still in darkness? Science has been asking this for centuries. Ancient cultures answered with certainty. Dreams were messages from gods, glimpses of the future, or journeys of the soul. The modern view is less certain, yet no less fascinated. We have mapped the brain's sleeping rhythms, measured the flicker of the eyes, tracked the pulse of neurons in REM, and still, the purpose of dreaming remains partly in shadow. One theory, simple in its elegance, is that dreams are rehearsals. The threat simulation theory suggests that your ancestors dreamed of dangers, wild animals, storms, enemies, as a way to practice survival without risking their lives. The logic is clear. A brain that could simulate danger could better prepare the body to face it. Even now, many dreams carry that pulse of urgency. You are running, hiding, searching for an escape. In these moments, the dream may be your mind's quiet training ground. Another view focuses on emotion. Some researchers see dreams as a form of overnight therapy, a place where feelings can be revisited without the sharpness of waking life. In REM sleep, the stress hormone norepinephrine drops, creating a calmer emotional climate. This allows you to revisit a fear, a loss, or a joy without the overwhelming rush it would bring in daylight. You may wake not remembering the dream, but feeling lighter, as if a knot had been quietly loosened. Then there is the memory consolidation theory, the idea that dreams help you store what matters and release what doesn't. All day your brain collects experiences like pebbles in a pocket. Some are precious and kept, others are quietly let go. During sleep, especially REM, the hippocampus works with the neocortex to file and integrate these experiences. Dreams may be the mind's way of weaving the day's threads into the wider fabric of your life story. But not all scientists agree that dreams have a purpose. The activation synthesis model proposes that they are simply the brain's attempt to make sense of random neural activity. In this view, REM sleep sends bursts of signals through the brain, and the storytelling regions, especially in the cortex, interpret them into something coherent, even if the result is surreal. The meaning then is not in the dream itself, but in the brain's instinct to find patterns. Still, even randomness can serve a purpose. By forcing the brain to make sense of unpredictable input, dreams may strengthen your ability to connect ideas, to solve puzzles, to adapt to the unexpected. In this way, even a dream born from chaos may be quietly sharpening the tools you use in waking life. Some theories reach further, suggesting that dreams help with creativity. In waking life you think along well-worn paths. In dreams, those paths dissolve. Ideas can meet that would never cross in the daylight. An inventor might wake with a design, a writer with a plot twist, a musician with a melody. It is no accident that history is dotted with breakthroughs that arrived in sleep. Your dreaming mind is not bound by what is reasonable, and that freedom can be fertile ground for creation. There is also a more philosophical theory that dreams are the mind's way of making sense of the self. When you dream, you see yourself in different situations, sometimes as you are, sometimes transformed. You might react in ways that surprise you. These experiences, even when fantastical, may be a kind of self-reflection, a mirror that shows aspects of you not always visible in waking hours. Perhaps the truth is not one theory but many. Dreams may be part rehearsal, part therapy, part memory keeping, part creative workshop. They may also contain elements of randomness, the mind's improvisations on stray signal. The brain is rarely a single-purpose machine. Its processes overlap, intertwine, and serve more than one need at once. And there is something poetic in that uncertainty. You do not need to know exactly why you dream to feel their effect. Even when the details dissolve in the morning light, you carry something of them, a mood, a thought, a quiet shift in how you see the world. They are like seeds scattered in the night, some sprouting into changes you can name, others growing unseen. Consider too how deeply personal dreams are. No one else dreams exactly as you do. Your mind draws from your history, your fears, your hopes, your private imagery. Even if two people describe similar dreams, the meaning, if there is meaning, is different for each. In this way, dreams are both universal and uniquely your own. And while science can measure the mechanics, the brain waves, the neurotransmitters, the eye movements, it cannot yet bottle the experience. The warmth of a long-lost voice, the vertigo of flying, the shock of stepping into a place you've never been, but somehow know, these belong to you alone in the moment of dreaming. They resist full explanation. This is where speculation and science meet in the middle ground. Dreams may be tools, they may be byproducts, they may be both. They may help you survive, create, process and heal, all while entertaining you with impossible adventures. Or they may be the mind's way of reminding you that not everything important can be measured. As you rest now, the night's work continues, whether you think of it or not. Somewhere in the background, your brain is testing scenarios, smoothing emotional edges, filing memories into long-term vaults. Somewhere else, it is spinning images from nothing, letting you taste the impossible. Theories can name the pieces, but they cannot fully capture the whole. And perhaps that is part of their gift, that dreams remain partly unknowable, even to the dreamer, in a life filled with explanations and definitions. Here is a nightly experience that defies complete understanding. You do not have to solve it to be changed by it. You only have to enter it, night after night, and let it carry you where it will. The question of why fades, replaced by the quieter question of how. If dreams are messages, then what language do they speak, and how do you begin to understand it? In the chapters ahead, the night will start speaking in symbols, and the work of translation will be yours. In waking life, you speak in words, in sentences, in the steady lines of grammar. But in dreams, language shifts. It no longer arrives in tidy rows. It pours in images, in gestures, in moments that do not need translation to be understood. A bird trapped in a room, a shadow stretching toward you, a door that will not open no matter how hard you push. These are not just events, they are symbols, the building blocks of the mind's oldest form of communication. You may not think of yourself as fluent in this language, yet you have been speaking it since before you could talk. As an infant, you understood the world through sensation and image, the warmth of light on your face, the comfort of a familiar touch, the sudden startle of an unfamiliar sound. Dreams return you to that state. Here, meaning is not tied to words. It is felt, embodied, and often layered with more than one truth. The locked door in your dream might be the conversation you are afraid to have, the goal that feels just out of reach, or a memory you cannot bring yourself to open. The sea might be freedom or fear depending on the current within you. A falling feather might carry the softness of release, or the ache of loss. In this language, one image can hold 1,000 shades of meaning, and often scientists and psychologists have long been fascinated by this symbolic speech. Sigmund Freud saw dreams as a stage for hidden desires, using symbols as disguises to protect the dreamer from truths too raw to face directly. Carl Jung believed symbols in dreams were archetypes, universal patterns that appear in myths, art, and spiritual traditions across cultures. Whether you follow these interpretations or not, the fact remains, dreams often speak in a shorthand that your waking mind must unravel. The brain's storyteller, which you met in earlier chapters, does not always explain its choices. It pulls from your memories, your emotions, your private imagery. Sometimes it chooses obvious stand-ins, a specific person for a specific memory. Other times it chooses symbols without a clear direct link, trusting you to feel their meaning rather than think it. Consider how dreams often blend symbols together: a childhood home filled with ocean water, a beloved friend wearing a stranger's face, a path that leads in a perfect circle back to where you began. Each combination deepens the message, as if the mind were layering metaphors, the way a painter layers colors, transparent in some places, opaque in others. The strange thing about symbols in dreams is that they often make sense to you while you are inside them. You do not need to pause and analyze the locked door while you dream. You know instinctively what it stands for in that moment. It is only on waking that the meaning begins to fade, leaving you with a puzzle made of fading images. Neuroscience tells us that during REM sleep, the brain's emotional centers like the amygdala are highly active, while the prefrontal cortex responsible for logical reasoning is quiet. This may be why symbols rise so easily in dreams. The rational mind steps back, and the emotional mind paints freely. It is a state where metaphor thrives, unrestrained by the need to explain itself. And yet, there is order. Even the strangest dream often has a thread running through it, a recurring image, a repeated setting, a symbol that returns again and again over the years. These recurring symbols may be part of your personal dream vocabulary, shaped by your history, your culture, your inner landscape. For someone else, a forest might be safety. For you, it might be the unknown. For one dreamer, flying might mean joy. For another, escape. Learning this language is less about reading a universal dictionary and more about listening to your own pattern. Pay attention to the symbols that return, to how they make you feel, to what was happening in your waking life when they appeared. Over time you may begin to notice that your dreams are not speaking in riddles at all, but in a dialect you are slowly remembering how to understand. Symbolic language is also flexible. The same image can shift meaning depending on what the rest of the dream contains. A fire in one dream may be destruction, in another it may be warmth. Water can be the weight of grief, or the ease of relief. The dream does not assign its symbols once and keep them forever. It uses them the way a poet uses words, shaping them to fit the moment. There is also beauty in how symbols connect you to something larger. Across cultures and centuries, certain images appear again and again: the journey, the threshold, the guide, the shadow, the transformation. Whether these are inborn archetypes or simply the natural shapes of human thought, they remind you that you are not dreaming in isolation. You are part of a much older conversation, one that began long before you and will continue long after. Perhaps this is why dreams can move you so deeply, even when you cannot explain them. The mind knows when it has been spoken to in its own language. A single image from a dream can linger for years, not because you understand it fully, but because it feels important, the way a melody can feel important without needing words. In this way, symbols in dreams are both personal and shared, fleeting and enduring. They connect the private inner world with the vast, collective human experience. They are a reminder that meaning is not always about clarity. Sometimes it is about resonance, about the way an image can echo inside you long after the dream has ended. And so, as you drift through the night, the language of symbols continues to shape the landscapes you travel. You do not need to control it. You do not even need to understand it in the moment. It is enough to be present, to notice, to carry the image with you into the day, and let its meaning unfold at its own pace. In the quiet hours ahead, the symbols will not only speak, they will begin to arrange themselves into something lasting. They will weave themselves into your memories, deciding which to keep and which to release. The night's work is not only about meaning, but about preservation. You are still in the soft weave of the night, moving through scenes that rise and fall like tides. Yet beneath the vivid colors and shifting shapes, another kind of work is being done. Slow, quiet, deliberate. It is not the work of a storyteller, nor of a translator of symbols. It is the work of a gardener, tending to the garden of your memory. Every day you gather seeds. Some are large and deliberate, a conversation you want to remember, a skill you are learning, a place you have visited for the first time. Others are small, unnoticed. The pattern of rain on a window, the smell of a certain street, the way light touched a stranger's hair. You cannot hold them all. The garden has only so much space. And so, each night, the gardener walks the rows. Science has given names to these processes. In the hippocampus, the curved structure, deep within your brain, new memories are first stored, fragile and fresh, like seedlings in a nursery. As you sleep, especially during cycles of REM and slow-wave sleep, the hippocampus works with the neocortex to move some of these seedlings into the long-term beds, where they can take root. Others are left to fade, cleared away to make room for what will come tomorrow. This is memory consolidation, the transformation of passing experiences into stable, lasting recollections. It is not random. The gardener chooses with care, guided by emotion, importance, and repetition. Events tied to strong feelings, joy, fear, pride, are more likely to be kept. Skills you have practiced are strengthened, their pathways reinforced like well-trodden trails. Information repeated during the day finds its place more easily than a fleeting moment you noticed only once. And just as important as planting is pruning, forgetting is not a flaw, but a necessity. Without it, your mind would be a wild, tangled growth where no path could be found. Old or unneeded memories are quietly trimmed back, allowing space for the present and future to flourish. A phone number you no longer use, a detail from a conversation that no longer matters. These may be released into the soil, broken down into the nutrients of possibility. Sometimes the gardener works on the same memory over many nights, returning to it again and again, adjusting, strengthening, refining. This may be why a skill you struggled with one day feels easier the next, or why a piece of information you could not recall suddenly surfaces without effort. While you rest, synaptic connections, the tiny bridges between neurons, are being reinforced or allowed to weaken, shaping the architecture of your mind. In this way, your dreams are not only stories but tools. They may replay certain moments, weaving them into strange narratives. Not to confuse you but to help integrate them. The context might shift. A meeting becomes a walk through a forest. A conversation takes place in a room that never existed. But the emotional essence remains. It is this essence that guides the gardener's decisions. Emotion is a powerful fertilizer in the garden of memory. The amygdala, active during dreaming, marks certain memories as important, flagging them for preservation. This is why you often remember emotionally charged events more vividly than neutral ones. The gardener does not work alone. It listens to these signals, planting and tending with their guidance. Even forgetting has its poetry. The gardener knows that some seeds are not meant to sprout immediately. Some are buried deep, dormant until something in your waking life calls them back. A scent, a sound, a familiar curve of light. And suddenly, a memory blooms that you thought was gone. It was never truly lost. It was resting, waiting for the right season. There is also a balance between integration and release. New memories must be woven into the fabric of who you already are, connected to what you know. Without these connections, they wither. This is why learning something in isolation can be difficult, while linking it to an existing skill or experience helps it stay. The gardener does not simply plant seeds at random. It places them where they will thrive among familiar roots. Dreams may sometimes act as the gardener's creative assistant. By blending new and old experiences, they can form associations you would not make in waking life. This cross-pollination allows you to see patterns, solve problems, or imagine possibilities that logic alone might miss. In this way, tending memory is not only about preservation, it is about growth. Sleep research has shown that depriving the brain of deep sleep, or REM, interrupts this gardening process. Without enough rest, memories remain fragile, more easily lost. Skills fade. The garden suffers from neglect, its paths overgrown, its flowers unwatered. This is why even a single night of poor sleep can leave you feeling foggy, less able to recall details or focus your thoughts. But tonight, you are giving the gardener time. You are lying still, letting the rhythms of your breath and heartbeat create the calm needed for the work to continue. Somewhere behind the curtain of awareness, memories are being examined, tested, and placed. Connections are being trimmed or strengthened. The soil of your mind is being prepared for the days ahead. You may never see this work directly. You will not wake to find rows of labeled plants in your head. The changes are subtle, revealed only in moments when you recall something effortlessly, when a skill feels more natural, when a forgotten detail rises to the surface just when you need it. And there is a certain comfort in knowing that this care is constant. The gardener does not take a night off. Whether the day was quiet or full, whether your dreams were vivid or faded before waking, the work is still done. You carry the results without having to supervise them. Perhaps this is part of why waking can feel like stepping into a freshened world. Even if you are not aware of what was kept and what was let go, your mind has been organized, refreshed. The garden is ready for a new day of growth. You drift on, unaware of the specific seeds being planted tonight, but trusting in the process. Somewhere, the gardener moves gently from row to row, hands deep in the soil, eyes scanning for what will serve you best in the life that waits beyond morning. And as the gardener works in silence, another caretaker stirs, one that does not tend memories, but feelings. Soon the night will turn its attention to the heart, easing the knots it finds there. The work of healing begins. You are far from the noise of the day now, deep in the slow rhythms of the night. The body rests, but the mind is not idle. It is moving through memories, through emotions, the invisible weight you carry. This is not the loud work of problem solving, or the neat sorting of facts. This is quieter, deeper. It is emotional, first aid. The kind of care that comes only when you are safe enough to let your guard down. In waking life, feelings can be overwhelming. Fear arrives with a racing heart. Sadness tightens your chest. Anger sends heat through your muscles. These reactions serve a purpose when you are alert and must act, but they can also make it hard to sit with the feeling itself. Sleep changes this. During REM, your brain does something extraordinary. It revisits emotional memories in a chemical environment different from waking. Levels of norepinephrine, the stress signal that primes your body for fight or flight, drop to nearly nothing. Without this chemical surge, you can re-enter an emotional memory without being flooded by the panic or pain it once carried. It is like watching a storm through a window, safe and dry. Here, fear becomes a shape you can examine instead of a wave that knocks you down. Grief is still heavy, but you can hold it without being crushed. Even joy, which in waking life can be as overwhelming as sorrow, can be remembered here in a way that nourishes rather than overwhelms. Sometimes this process is clear in your dream. You might dream of a past event, but in a softened form, a place you once left in sadness, now lit by evening sun, a person you lost, now standing beside you without speaking, their presence enough. At other times the emotions are disguised in story, a chase that carries the pulse of fear from a real-life moment, a long climb that echoes the persistence you needed to survive something difficult. This is the brain's way of taking you back without taking you under. You are not reliving, you are reprocessing. Neural circuits in the amygdala, hippocampus and prefrontal cortex work together, gently adjusting the connection between memory and emotion. The memory may remain, but the sharp edge of the feeling begins to dull. Scientists sometimes call this overnight therapy. Each night you are given a chance to revisit what the day has left unresolved, or what the past has left tender. The brain does not force the work, it offers it. If the moment is not right, the memory may wait for another night. Healing, even here, takes its own time. This emotional tending is not only about softening pain, it is also about preserving and strengthening feelings that serve you: courage, gratitude, love. A joyful memory, replayed in a dream, can be a source of strength long after the event itself. Just as your brain strengthens certain skills during sleep, it can also reinforce the emotional patterns that make you resilient. Think of it like a physician making careful rounds. They do not treat every wound the same way. Some need immediate attention, others need time and space. Some require a gentle touch, others need a deeper intervention. Your dreaming brain takes the same care with the emotional landscape it walks each night. Even nightmares can be part of this work. They are not always the enemy they see. A nightmare can be the brain's attempt to process fear by placing it in a symbolic form, something you can face in a safe environment. This is why trauma therapy sometimes includes dream work, helping people find resolution or mastery over recurring frightening dreams. The mind rehearses safety until safety begins to feel possible again. There are also moments when dreams act like emotional mirrors, showing you feelings you have ignored in waking life. You may think you are fine, but in a dream you are searching for something you cannot find, or standing in a place that feels both familiar and empty. The imagery may be strange, but the emotion is true. This can be the mind's way of nudging you toward what needs attention. In all of this, there is no rush. Emotional first aid in dreams is not a single event, but an ongoing process. A wound in the heart may take many nights to tend. Some memories will be visited again and again, each time with a little less pain, until they can rest quietly without demanding your waking attention. And there is another gift in this nightly care: integration. Emotions do not exist in isolation. They are tied to beliefs, to habits, to the way you see yourself. In dreams, these threads can be rewoven. A painful memory can be connected to a new perspective. An old fear can be linked to a moment of courage. In this way, dreams not only soothe, they reshape. Even if you wake without recalling a single image, the work may still have been done. You may notice it in small ways. A thought that no longer stings, a situation that feels easier to face, a memory that has shifted from a sharp photograph to a soft painting. The change is subtle, but it is real. Your brain tends to your heart without needing your conscious instruction. You do not have to direct it. You only have to give it the conditions it needs: time, rest, safety. And in return it gives you the quiet gift of healing you did not have to force. In this, the night is not only a place of rest, but a place of restoration. Every heartbeat, every slow breath is part of the treatment. Every dream, whether you remember it or not, carries the possibility of mending something unseen. And as the heart is soothed, the mind sometimes becomes aware of itself inside the dream. A spark of recognition appears, a moment when you know you are dreaming. What happens next is another kind of journey entirely. It happens rarely, and almost always without warning. You are in the middle of a dream, moving through a forest of impossible colors, speaking to someone whose face changes as you look. When a small, clear thought blooms inside you. This isn't real, I'm dreaming. The realization is quiet, but it changes everything. The air seems to sharp colors brighten, as though someone has turned the light up just enough for you to notice details you'd missed. A sense of control, subtle but undeniable, stirs in you. You are not only moving through the dream, you are aware of it, and for a moment, you can shape. This is lucid dreaming, the state in which the sleeper becomes conscious within the dream. You are still asleep, your body still held in the safe paralysis of REM, but part of your waking awareness has slipped in like a guest, invited to a secret performance. Science tells us that during a lucid dream, regions of the prefrontal cortex, the seat of self-reflection and decision-making, show more activity than they do in typical REM sleep. It is as though the dream has opened a small window to your conscious mind, letting a breeze of logic and choice drift in. But that window is delicate, and it can close without warning. The first thing you might feel is wonder. There is a thrill in knowing you can act without the rules of waking life. If you want to fly, you can. If you wish to walk through walls, the walls will soften. If you want to speak to someone who is far away or long gone, they can. The dream becomes a canvas, and you hold the brush for a little while. Yet, even here, control is rarely absolute. The dream resists full command. You may find that some elements bend easily to your will while others remain stubbornly independent. You can decide to walk toward the ocean, but when you arrive, the ocean might have turned into a mountain. The dream is not a servant. It is a partner in the dance, and it keeps its own rhythm. Many people first experience lucidity by accident, perhaps triggered by something impossible happening, like breathing underwater, or reading the same line of text twice, and watching it change. Others learn to cultivate it through practice, keeping dream journals, performing reality checks during the day, or setting the intention before sleep. Over time, these practices can train the mind to recognize the feel of a dream from the inside. When lucidity comes, it can serve many purposes. Some use it for exploration, wandering through landscapes that could not exist in waking life. Others use it for rehearsal, practicing skills or confronting fears in a safe space. A person who fears public speaking might deliver a speech to a dream audience. Someone facing a personal conflict might rehearse a conversation. In lucid dreams, the stakes are low, but the experience can still feel vivid enough to build confidence. There is also a quieter use for lucidity, simply pausing to look around, to take in the textures and sensations of a world made entirely by your mind. The smoothness of a stone, the scent of rain, the sound of footsteps echoing in a hallway that dissolves behind you. These details remind you of the richness of the dreaming mind, the way it can generate entire worlds without effort. But lucidity is fragile. Strong emotion, excitement, fear, even joy can pull you too close to waking. You may feel your awareness flicker, the dream's edges blur, your body beginning to remember itself in bed. Sometimes you can steady yourself by rubbing your dream hands together, by focusing on the ground beneath your feet. But often lucidity fades as suddenly as it appeared. Even when it slips away, the memory of lucidity lingers. You wake with the quiet astonishment of having held both roles at once, the dreamer and the witness. It is a reminder that you are not entirely powerless in the landscapes of your own mind, and that even in the deepest sleep, a spark of awareness can survive. There is mystery here too. Scientists can study brain activity during lucid dreams, but they cannot fully explain why some dreams invite awareness while others do not. Some think it is a kind of hybrid state, part REM, sleep, part waking consciousness. Others see it as evidence of how flexible the mind's boundaries can be. In either case, it is a glimpse of how much we still do not know about the architecture of dreaming. Lucid dreams also invite philosophical questions. If you can shape your dream, even a little, what does that say about the role of control in your waking life? How much of what you move through each day is a choice, and how much is the mind's deeper rhythm carrying you? In the dream, as in life, there is a balance between intention and surrender. Some dreamers find lucidity addictive, seeking it often, trying to extend it longer each time. Others are content to let it arrive only when it chooses, valuing its rarity. Either way, the experience leaves an impression, the knowledge that inside the vast, shifting theater of the night, there are moments when you can step on stage and improvise your own line. And yet, perhaps the most beautiful aspect of lucid dreaming is not the power to shape the dream, but the chance to meet it with awareness, to stand inside a world built entirely from thought and feeling, knowing it will dissolve, and to appreciate it fully while it lasts. It is a lesson in impermanence, in presence, in the gentle art of letting go. When lucidity fades, the dream often continues without you steering it, slipping back into its own current. You may forget you are dreaming, you may surrender to the flow, but something of that light remains, a quiet awareness that may follow you into waking, the sense that even in the most vivid illusions, you can sometimes open your eyes without opening them. And when the light of awareness dims, the dream still moves, sometimes toward beauty, sometimes toward shadow. There are nights when the dream turns dark, and the mind walks through fear. In those moments, even the safest sleeper may find themselves face to face with a nightmare. Sleep is often imagined as a refuge, a place where you can lay down the weight of the day and drift into softness. But not every dream is gentle. Some nights the mind opens a different door, and you find yourself in the grip of something darker, a chase you cannot escape, a fall that will not end. A face you know twisted into something unrecognizable. These are nightmares, dreams that stir fear, anxiety, or dread, so vividly that they pull you from the comfort of rest. The word nightmare once meant something very different. In old European folklore, it referred to a supernatural creature, a nightmare that sat on the chest of the sleeper, suffocating them with terror. In truth, there is no creature. The weight you feel is not an intruder but your own mind, replaying its deepest alarms in the theater of REM sleep. Science has traced much of a nightmare's intensity to the amygdala, a small, almond-shaped structure deep in the brain. The amygdala is part of the limbic system, the network that processes emotion, particularly fear and threat. In waking life, it acts like a sentinel, scanning for danger and triggering the body's fight or flight response when needed. In REM sleep, the amygdala remains highly active, even more so than during much of the day. Without the grounding influence of full waking awareness, its alarms can transform into rich, immersive worlds. Nightmares can be born from many sources. Acute stress, grief, or trauma can feed their imagery, weaving waking fears into the fabric of sleep. Illness or fever can sharpen sensory detail, making the dream world unnervingly vivid. Certain medications or substances can alter the chemistry of REM, intensifying emotion. Even ordinary life events, an unresolved conflict, a change in routine, can leave an emotional imprint strong enough to surface at night. But not all nightmares arrive as direct copies of waking events. Often they are symbolic. You may never have faced the literal scenario you dream, being trapped in a burning building, pursued through an endless maze, yet the fear is familiar. The dream is not showing you the fear's exact cause, it is showing you its shape. One leading theory suggests that nightmares serve an adaptive function. They may be the brain's way of rehearsing danger in a safe environment, a process known as threat simulation. From an evolutionary perspective, being able to mentally practice responses to danger could increase your chances of survival. If you dream of being chased, your mind may be strengthening the neural circuits needed to react quickly, even if the threat in your dream does not exist in reality. Another view focuses on emotional processing. Just as dreams in general can help soften difficult feelings, nightmares might be attempts to work through intense emotions that are harder to face in waking life. The difference is that nightmares push those emotions to their most extreme. They can act as a kind of exposure therapy, repeatedly presenting the feared situation until it loses some of its power. However, not all nightmares succeed in resolving. For some, especially those with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, nightmares become chronic, replaying the same event again and again. In these cases, the dream's purpose may be overwhelmed by the emotional weight of the trauma. The brain becomes caught in a loop, revisiting the memory without resolution. Therapies such as imagery rehearsal therapy, in which the dreamer consciously rewrites the nightmare's ending during waking hours, can help break this cycle. The body's role in nightmares is just as striking as the mind's. Even though rare metonia, the temporary paralysis of most voluntary muscles, keeps you from physically acting out your dreams. Your autonomic nervous system can still respond. Heart rate can spike, breathing can quicken, sweat can bead on the skin. These reactions mirror the body's response to real danger, blurring the line between imagined and physical threat. Sometimes the experience of a nightmare bleeds into a phenomenon called sleep paralysis. In this state, you wake during REM before muscle control has returned. You may be aware of your surroundings but unable to move, and dream imagery may still be present. The sensation can be terrifying, a waking nightmare in which the shadows feel real. Though it passes within seconds or minutes, it leaves a deep imprint on memory. Not all nightmares come with fear alone. Some carry other intense emotions, shame, guilt, helplessness, and can be just as unsettling. A dream in which you fail to protect someone, or in which you make a choice that feels deeply wrong, can leave you waking with a heaviness that lingers into the day. These emotional residues are part of why nightmares can feel more real than many pleasant dreams. Negative emotions often carve deeper grooves in memory, making them harder to forget. Children are especially prone to nightmares, partly because their brains are still learning to regulate emotion. Their imaginations are vivid, their fears immediate. A frightening movie or an overheard conversation can become raw material for the night. While these nightmares can be distressing, they also offer opportunities for reassurance and the development of coping skills. For adults, the meaning of nightmares often shifts. While some still feature fantastical dangers, others draw more directly from life's stressors. Financial strain, relationship conflict, health worries. The brain uses the surreal logic of dreams to distill these concerns into images that demand attention, even if they confuse more than they clarify. Nightmares also tend to cluster during periods of change. Transitions, moving to a new place, starting or leaving a job, entering or ending a relationship, unsettle the mind's sense of stability. Sleep reflects this instability, often by creating dream scenarios that test the self in unfamiliar situations. In this way, nightmares may be a sign that your mind is actively adjusting to change, even if the process feels uncomfortable. For all their darkness, nightmares can sometimes open doors to insight. If you can recall them without recoiling, they may reveal patterns in your waking fears, unresolved conflicts, or areas of vulnerability. This is not to say that every nightmare holds a hidden message. Sometimes a nightmare is simply the product of a restless night or a restless mind, but in other cases, their persistence can point towards something within you that is asking to be acknowledged. Working with nightmares rather than against them can shift their impact. Writing them down, talking about them, or exploring them in therapy can turn them from haunting experiences into sources of understanding. For some, learning to become lucid during a nightmare, to realize, even briefly, that it is a dream, can transform fear into agency. In that moment, you might choose to face the pursuer, to open the locked door, to speak to the figure in the shadow. Sometimes the act of turning toward the fear is enough to change the dream's course. From a scientific perspective, nightmares are reminders of how deeply intertwined emotion, memory, and survival are in the architecture of the brain. They are not accidents or flaws in the system. They are built from the same machinery that keeps you alert in danger, that stores your most important experiences, that learns from the past to prepare for the future. And yet, beyond the science, there is the human truth. Nightmares are hard to endure. They can shake you awake in the dark, leaving your heart pounding, your body tense, your mind tangled in images you did not choose. They can make you dread the very act of sleep, but they can also be met with curiosity, not in the moment of fear perhaps, but later, the calm of daylight, when you can look at them as part of the mind's long conversation with itself. In the end, nightmares are a paradox. They are the most feared dreams, yet they may carry some of the mind's most important work. They frighten you, but they may also prepare you. They unsettle you, but they can also teach you what matters, what hurts, and what still needs tending. And sometimes after walking through shadow, the mind shifts the balance. The night can bring not just fear but movement, a stirring toward action, a sudden awareness. On rare occasions the dreamer wakes inside the dream, ready to take the reins once more. Sleep is meant to be the body's great surrender, muscles slack, eyes closed, mind turned inward. But on some nights, in some sleepers, stillness is interrupted. Without waking fully, the body rises, feet find the floor, limbs obey a rhythm that is not entirely conscious. Words may escape the mouth, soft and disjointed, spoken to no one who can answer. This is sleepwalking, and it is as strange as it is revealing. Scientifically, sleepwalking is called somnambulism. It usually occurs during the deeper stages of non-REM sleep, most often in the first half of the night when slow-wave sleep is at its strongest. In this state, the brain is far from the vivid activity of REM. It is deeply asleep, but not all of it at once. Parts of the brain that control movement and basic navigation can switch on, while the areas responsible for full awareness remain at rest. The result is a curious hybrid state. The body behaves as though awake, but the mind is still somewhere in the quiet fields of sleep. The sleepwalker's eyes may be open, yet their gaze is unfocused, as if looking at a world layered with something unseen. No one knows exactly why some people sleepwalk and others do not. It appears more often in children, whose brains spend more time in deep non-REM sleep, and whose sleep cycles are still developing. In many cases, children outgrow it as their nervous systems mature. But adults can sleepwalk too, sometimes triggered by stress, fever, alcohol, certain medications, or disruptions to the normal rhythm of sleep. For those who witness it, sleepwalking can be uncanny. The person may walk slowly around the room, rearrange objects, or perform familiar tasks like opening a door or pouring a glass of water. Their actions seem purposeful, but are usually fragments of routines, bits of the waking world stitched into the fabric of the dream. In some cases, the sleepwalker is clearly acting out a scene from their inner world. They might reach for something unseen, speak in sentences that make sense only in the dream's logic, or show expressions that match emotions they are feeling in sleep. It is as though the border between the imagined and the real has grown porous, and the dream has leaked into the room. From a neurological standpoint, sleepwalking is a disorder of arousal. The sleeper is partially awakened from deep sleep, enough to move but not enough to become fully conscious. This is why sleepwalkers often have no memory of their action. The hippocampus, which helps store and retrieve memories, is not fully online during the episode, so the night's wandering vanishes into the blank space between waking and dreaming. Safety is a real concern. Because the body is mobile without the guidance of full awareness, a sleepwalker can navigate stairs, streets, or kitchens without registering the risks. This is why those who live with a sleepwalker are advised not to wake them with a start, not because waking is inherently dangerous, but because the confusion and disorientation can be distressing for both people. Instead, gentle redirection back to bed is safe. There is a long history of fascination with sleepwalking in art and literature. Shakespeare gave Lady Macbeth a haunting sleepwalking scene, her hands compulsively miming the washing away of imagined blood. In 19th-century opera, it was sometimes used to signify innocence or emotional vulnerability, a character moving through the world unguarded, guided only by what lies beneath consciousness. Even now, the image of the sleepwalker carries a symbolic weight, a figure between worlds, caught in the pull of both. But beyond the poetry, there is science. Researchers using brain imaging have found that during sleepwalking, the motor regions of the brain, those that control movement, are active, while areas involved in decision-making and self-awareness are much less so. It is a state of partial activation, like a house where only certain rooms have their lights on. For the person experiencing it, the line between dream and waking is almost non-existent. A sleepwalker might believe they are in a completely different place, or that they are performing a necessary task. In this way, sleepwalking is different from most dreaming, where the body is immobilized by REM atonia. In non-REM parasomnias like sleepwalking, that immobilization never arrives, and so the dream can spill outward into action. Episodes can be brief, lasting only a few seconds, or extend for several minutes. In rare cases, they can be longer, with the sleepwalker traveling significant distances before returning to bed. The return itself can be as mysterious as the departure. The sleeper may slip under the covers and continue sleeping as if nothing happened, their breathing deepening, their face peaceful once more. The reasons behind sleepwalking remain partly mysterious. Some scientists suspect a genetic component, as it often runs in families. Others point to environmental triggers, noise, temperature changes, irregular sleep schedules, that can increase the likelihood of partial arousals from deep sleep. Stress and fatigue also seem to play a role, perhaps making the brain more likely to misfire in its transitions between sleep stages. Though often harmless, sleepwalking can sometimes offer subtle insights into the sleeper's mental state. A period of frequent episodes may coincide with emotional stress, major life changes, or disruptions to the body's internal clock. In this sense, sleepwalking can be a kind of signal not of a specific problem, but of a mind and body out of sync. There is also a quieter mystery to it. What is the sleeper experiencing in those moments? Are they fully in the dream, seeing and hearing a world the waking observer cannot? Or are they moving through a dim half-awareness, like a diver swimming near the surface, sensing the pull of air above but still submerged? The answer may change from person to person, and from night to night. For some, sleepwalking is a rare curiosity, an odd event retold at breakfast, a story that fades with the day. For others, it is a recurring part of life, shaping bedtime routines and safety precautions. And for all, it is a reminder that sleep is not a single state, but a shifting landscape with borderlands where the rules of both waking and dreaming blur. The image of a sleepwalker, eyes open, mind elsewhere, moving through a room they cannot fully see, captures something essential about the human experience of sleep. We think of sleeping and waking as opposites, but they are points on a spectrum, and in between there are many shades. Sleepwalking is one of those shades, a place where the dreamer and the waking self briefly share the same stage, and when the sleepwalker lies down again, the body stills, but the night's performance is not over. The dreams continue, shifting and changing, and sometimes they vanish before morning light can touch them. In the next breath of the night, you may wake without waking, remembering only that something has been lost. It begins in the soft edge between sleep and wake. You are rising toward consciousness, eyes still closed, the world around you still muffled. Somewhere a dream is fading. You can almost see it, the outline of a face, the shape of a room, a sentence half formed in the air. For a moment you hold still, afraid to move in case the motion scatters it. But even without moving, you can feel it slipping away, as if it were water held in open hands. This is the vanishing act of dream. They live in a fragile space, carried by the chemistry and patterns of the sleeping brain, and the moment those patterns shift toward waking, their structure begins to dissolve. It is not because the dream was unimportant, but because the brain stores waking and dreaming memories differently. During sleep, especially REM, the hippocampus and neocortex work together to process and integrate memories. But the kind of memory most dreams belong to, what neuroscientists call episodic memory, requires certain neurochemicals, like norepinephrine, to be active. In REM, sleep, these chemicals are at their lowest levels. This means that while the dream feels vivid in the moment, the machinery needed to store it in long-term memory is only partially engaged. When you wake, the neurochemical balance shifts quickly. The brain's focus turns to processing incoming sensory information, the feel of the sheets, the sound of a car outside, the light filtering through the curtains. This incoming flood pushes the delicate traces of the dream aside, like footprints on a beach erased by a fast-rising tide. And yet, even as the details vanish, the dream is not entirely gone. Something remains, a mood, a tone, a faint residue of the journey you just took. You may not recall the plot, but you carry the feeling. You wake with inexplicable calm, or unease, or longing, and it colors your day without explanation. Sometimes, a fragment clings to you, a single image, a red door, a bird in flight, the sound of someone calling your name. These fragments are like seeds, small enough to survive the shift into waking, even if their roots remain buried in the night. At odd moments later in the day, something you see or hear may brush against them, and the dream stirs briefly in your mind before fading again. Dream recall varies widely from person to person. Some wake each morning with a handful of scenes intact, while others almost never remember. The reasons are many: genetics, sleep patterns, attention, and the timing of waking during or right after REM dramatically increases the chances of remembering, because the dream's images are still active in the short-term buffer of memory. Sleep straight through to morning, and those images have often faded beyond reach. There are ways to strengthen recall: keeping a notebook by your bed, lying still for a few moments upon waking to revisit the dream before moving, setting the intention before sleep to remember. These practices work by catching the dream in that brief moment when it still exists as something whole, before the waking mind takes over. But even without recall, dreams leave their mark. Research has shown that they can influence problem-solving, creativity, and emotional regulation regardless of whether you remember them. The mind may forget the images, but the work of the dream, processing emotions, connecting ideas, rehearsing scenarios, still shapes you. You are changed by dreams you will never recall, just as you are shaped by conversations you have long forgotten. In a way, the forgetting is part of the design. If you remembered every dream in detail, your waking mind might become cluttered with narratives competing for attention. Forgetting allows you to move through the day focused on what is in front of you, carrying only what your mind deems most relevant. Still, there is a particular poignancy to the loss. Dreams can be beautiful in ways waking life rarely is: impossible colors, improbable reunions, moments that feel like revelations. When they vanish, it can feel like losing something precious. This is why some people reach for their dream journal the instant they wake, trying to catch the story before it slips away. There is also a mystery in how some dreams return unbidden, days or even years later. You may be walking down a street, hearing a piece of music, or stepping into a room, and suddenly you know you have been here before, not in waking life but in a dream long forgotten. The brain, it seems, can store dream material in hidden corners, to be unlocked only by the right cue. These moments remind you that forgetting is not always erasure. It is often simply storage in places you do not consciously visit. The dream may sleep inside you until something stirs it awake. For all their vanishing, dreams leave subtle traces. They can shift your emotional state, alter your perspective, or influence your choices in ways you may never connect to them. You may feel more open to a possibility, more cautious about a path, more drawn to a person, without realizing that the nudge came from something you saw in the theater of sleep. And perhaps this is the deeper truth. Dreams do not need to be remembered to matter. They are part of the ongoing conversation your mind has with itself, a conversation that does not stop simply because you are unaware of its words. Like the deep roots of a tree, they work unseen, supporting the life that rises into the light. You can choose to chase them, to catch them in ink before they fade, or you can let them go, trusting that what is important will remain in ways you may not recognize. Either way, they have already done their work. The moment your eyes open, you are not quite the same as you were when they closed. And as the dream's last traces dissolve, you are left with what the night decided to give you, and what it chose to keep hidden. Sometimes the stories you remember are your own, and sometimes they are as old as humanity itself. Across the world, others are dreaming too, their own memories and myths threading into the vast tapestry of human dreaming. When you close your eyes at night and drift into a dream, it can feel like a deeply personal journey, an inner world shaped entirely by your own mind. And yet, the act of dreaming connects you to something vast and ancient. Across time and continents, people have dreamed as you do now. They have awoken with images lingering, emotions still warm in the chest, and the same question in their minds: what does it mean? In many cultures, this question has never been just a matter of curiosity. Dreams have been treated as guidance, as warnings, as direct lines to realms beyond ordinary perception. The earliest written dream records we know of come from Mesopotamia, carved into clay tablets more than 4,000 years ago. These ancient scribes recorded the dreams of kings and commoners alike, often alongside interpretations that linked the dream's symbols to divine will. A lion in a dream might foretell victory in battle. A river flooding might signal political upheaval. In ancient Egypt, dreams were seen as messages from the gods, delivered to the sleeper through a kind of sacred channel. Temples known as dream sanctuaries invited people to sleep in specially prepared spaces, where priests would assist them in seeking prophetic dreams. These dreams might guide decisions about harvests, marriages, or journey. In this worldview, the dreamer was not alone. They were in direct audience with the divine. Among the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, the dream time is a central spiritual concept, not just a place visited in sleep, but the timeless realm where ancestral beings shaped the world. While the dream time is broader than nocturnal dreaming, the two are connected. Dreams can serve as pathways to ancestral wisdom, places where the past, present, and future intertwine. A dream is not simply a story from the mind, but an event that has meaning in the fabric of reality itself. In many indigenous cultures of the Americas, dreams have long been seen as tools for guidance, healing, and connection. Among the Iroquois, for example, dreams could reveal desires or needs that the waking self might not recognize. Sharing and honoring dreams was part of community life, a way of maintaining balance between the inner and outer worlds. Among some Plains tribes, vision quests and dream fasting were deliberate acts to invite powerful dreams that could reveal a person's role in the community or provide symbols to be carried for life. Half a world away, in ancient China, dreams were often understood through the lens of balance and harmony. The philosopher Zhuangzi famously told the story of dreaming he was a butterfly, only to wake and wonder if he was a man who had dreamed of being a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming he was a man. In the Chinese medical tradition, dreams could reflect the state of the body's qi, or life energy, offering insight into both physical and emotional health. In Islamic culture, dreams have held a respected place for centuries, with traditions of dream interpretation grounded in religious and historical texts. Certain dreams were believed to come from God as guidance or reassurance, others from the self, and still others from disruptive sources to be dismissed. The skill of distinguishing between these types was seen as both spiritual and practical knowledge. In the West, dreams began to be approached differently during the Enlightenment and into the modern era. While religious and prophetic interpretations persisted, scientific curiosity began to take root. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, figures like Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung reframed dreams as expressions of the unconscious mind. For Freud, dreams were a disguised fulfillment of desires, their symbols hiding thoughts too unsettling for the conscious mind. For Jung, they were messages from the deeper self, offering images that could help balance the psyche. Today, psychology and neuroscience often focus on the mechanics of dreaming, how brain regions interact during sleep, how memory and emotion feed into the night's imagery. Yet, even in laboratories, the question of meaning has not been entirely set aside. Researchers still ask why dreams feel significant, why even a meaningless-seeming dream can leave a lasting emotional imprint. The variety of dream interpretations across cultures is staggering, yet certain themes appear again and again. Flying dreams, for instance, appear in records from ancient Greece to modern America. Dreams of being chased, of teeth falling out, of being lost. These are reported in places where the language, environment, and customs are entirely different. It suggests that while culture shapes the meaning we assign to dreams, the architecture of dreaming itself may be universal. Even the act of sharing dreams is a thread that runs through humanity. In some cultures, a morning might begin with the telling of dreams, each person's night contributing to the day's sense of direction. In others, dreams are shared only with certain people, a spiritual leader, a healer, a trusted friend, who can help interpret their meaning. In the modern world, we might share them casually over breakfast, or in a message to someone far away, but the impulse is the same: to take the private language of the night and see how it sounds in the daylight. Global beliefs about dreams often reflect a culture's broader worldview. A society that sees life as interconnected with the spirit world may naturally see dreams as a bridge between them. A culture that values logic and material explanation may view dreams as mental processes, still fascinating but self-contained. Neither approach is right or wrong, each is a lens, and each reveals something about the dreamer and the dream. There is also a quiet democracy in dreaming. It belongs to everyone. The farmer and the king, the child and the elder, the skeptic and the mystic, all dream. In this way, dreaming may be one of humanity's oldest shared experiences, a nightly reminder that for all our differences in waking life, we each enter the same mysterious territory when we sleep. In the modern world, globalization has created new intersections in how we think about dreams. Indigenous knowledge meets psychological theory. Neuroscience studies are discussed alongside traditional interpretations. People from vastly different traditions can now share their dream experiences instantly, discovering commonalities and contrasts that would once have been separated by ocean. Yet, despite all this exchange, dreams still carry a sense of privacy. No one else can truly experience your dream as you did. Even if you describe it perfectly, the images in your mind will always be your own. This is perhaps why dreams can feel so precious. They are both part of a vast human tradition and entirely yours alone. To dream is to stand in two worlds, one shaped by the culture and history you inherit, and one shaped by the private landscapes of your own mind. The tapestry is global, But every thread is unique, and as the tapestry stretches across centuries and continents, it also crosses species. You are not the only one who dreams. The night's visions belong to many kinds of minds. Some of them beat with wings, swim through dark waters, or run on silent paws. You have seen it before: the dog lying by the hearth, paws jerking as if running, a faint whimper slipping from its throat, or the cat curled in a patch of sunlight, whiskers twitching, tail flicking in a rhythm only it understands. Even the small canaries in their cages, heads tucked beneath their wings, sometimes stir and flutter as though their wings were caught in the wind of some unseen flight. We recognize these moments instinctively, even before science explains them. The animal is somewhere else, not in the room, not in the waking world. It is in the quiet, private landscape of a dream. For a long time, humans wondered if animals truly dreamed, or if these twitches and murmurs were just reflexes empty of inner experience. The question lingered because dreams are invisible to anyone but the dreamer, and animals cannot tell us what they see. But as sleep science advanced, the evidence began to gather, and it pointed towards something remarkable. Dreaming is not uniquely human. Studies in the mid-20th century revealed that many mammals experience REM sleep, the stage most strongly associated with vivid dreaming in humans. In this state, brain activity patterns in animals closely mirror those seen in us: rapid eye movements, irregular breathing, bursts of neural activity in the cortex. In some experiments, researchers gently recorded brain signals from sleeping cats and dogs, watching as their neurons fired in patterns identical to those recorded when the animals were awake and moving. It was as if the brain were replaying the same song, but now in the theater of the mind. One famous experiment with rats made the case even clearer. Scientists trained the rats to run a maze during the day, recording the unique firing patterns of their hippocampal neurons, the cells that form and store spatial memories. Later, when the rats slept, those same patterns reappeared in the same sequence, as if the rats were running the maze again in their dreams. Some sequences ran faster, some slower, but the order was unmistakable. The dream was a replay of waking life. Birds, too, have shown signs of dream-like processing. Songbirds, for instance, practice their melodies during the day. When they sleep, the same brain regions responsible for song production become active, firing in patterns that match their waking practice session. It is as if the sleeping bird is singing silently to itself, refining its performance for the next morning. Even reptiles, once thought to have simpler, more mechanical brains, have shown evidence of distinct sleep states. In some species, researchers have detected alternating phases of activity that resemble both slow-wave sleep and REM-like states. If these patterns carry dreams, then dreaming may stretch even further back in evolutionary history than we once imagined. Why would animals dream? The possible answers are as varied as the creatures themselves. For predators like cats, dreaming might allow them to rehearse the swift, precise movements of a hunt. For prey animals, it might help them refine escape strategy. For migratory birds, perhaps dreams replay the vast landscapes of their routes, keeping the map fresh in their minds. And for social animals, elephants, dolphins, primates, dreams may help reinforce bonds, rehearse interactions, or revisit significant events. Whatever the purpose, dreaming seems to serve functions important enough to have been preserved over millions of years of evolution. This suggests that dreams are not just random byproducts of sleep, but tools shaping memory, skill, and survival in ways we are only beginning to understand. To imagine the dreams of animals is to step into a form of empathy that does not rely on language. A dog's whimper might be the echo of a chase in the park. A cat's twitch might be the pounce at the end of a hunt. A horse shifting its hooves in its sleep might be galloping across a remembered field. Even a goldfish drifting in a tank may be navigating an imagined current. Some of the most moving examples come from animals known for their intelligence and emotional depth. Dolphins, for instance, sleep with only one hemisphere of their brain at a time, keeping the other awake to watch for danger. Yet even in this half-sleep, their resting hemisphere enters patterns that may be tied to dreamlike experience. Elephants, with their complex social lives and strong memories, spend relatively little time in a REM, but when they do, the content of their dreams could be rich with faces, scents, and places from their wide-ranging travel. Primates, our closest relatives, show a REM patterns strikingly similar to our own, and many researchers believe they dream much as we do, with narratives, emotions, and replayed experience. Watching a chimpanzee sleep its eyes darting beneath the lids, its lips moving in a faint expression. It is hard not to wonder if it is remembering the day's events or imagining tomorrow's. There is a humility in recognizing that we share this nightly voyage with so many other creatures. Dreaming is not a private human invention, but an ancient inheritance, passed down through countless generations. It means that somewhere right now, as you read these words, countless other beings are asleep and dreaming, under the ocean, in the forest, on mountain tops, in city apartments. The dream world is a vast, shared territory, even if each mind travels its own path through it. The more we learn about animal dreaming, the more it challenges the boundary we often place between ourselves and the rest of life. We are not the only storyteller. We are not the only ones who replay the past and imagine the future in the theater of sleep. The capacity to dream may be one of the oldest forms of consciousness, a reminder that awareness is not only a waking state, but a sleeping one too. In this light, the sight of a sleeping animal takes on a new depth. You are not just watching a body at rest, you are witnessing a mind at work in another world. You cannot follow it there, but you can imagine, and perhaps that is its own kind of connection. Science will continue to explore these mysteries, mapping the brainwaves of sleeping creatures, comparing their patterns to our own, and asking what dreams mean for their survival, their memory, their sense of self. But there will always be a part of animal dreaming that remains unmeasured, the private landscapes only they can see, and maybe that is fitting. Dreams, whether human or animal, are not meant to be entirely known. They are meant to be lived in the moment, to do their work unseen, and to dissolve in the morning light, leaving behind only what the dreamer needs to carry forward. And if animals dream alongside us, shaping their nights as we shape ours, then perhaps dreaming itself is a thread that stitches all life together. From their silent theaters we return to our own, carrying visions that can spark creation. For in the next chapter, the dreams that shape survival will also shape art, discovery, and invention. You drift through a space without borders. No clock ticks here, no door marks the boundary between one thought and the next. Your mind is free, wandering through a field where the usual fences of logic have fallen away. Here, in the silent hours of sleep, ideas do something extraordinary. They combine in ways they never could while you are awake. Creativity often hides in the spaces where you are not looking for it. In waking life, your thoughts follow well-worn paths. You solve problems the way you have solved them before, reach for answers that seem familiar. But in dreams, the rules loosen. Memories from years ago might stand side by side with something you saw yesterday. A half-forgotten melody could drift into the shape of a new invention. The mind does not ask if it is possible. It simply plays. History is full of moments where this nighttime play became something real. The chemist Auguste Kekule once dreamed of a snake biting its own tail, and awoke with the vision of the benzene ring, a shape that changed the course of organic chemistry. Paul McCartney is said to have woken with the tune for Yesterday already playing in his head, as if the song had been waiting for him in some quiet corner of the night. The mathematician Srinivasa Ramanujan spoke of dreams where equations appeared before him, complete and complex, as if whispered by something beyond his waking reach. Scientists studying the connection between dreams and creativity have found that REM sleep, the stage most associated with vivid dreaming, is especially powerful for idea-making. During REM, the brain's associative networks light up. This means distant, seemingly unrelated pieces of information can suddenly link together. A problem you could not solve in daylight might find its answer here, simply because the mind is free to wander across unlikely bridges. You may have felt this yourself. You go to bed wrestling with a thought, a story that will not write itself, a design that will not fit, a choice that will not resolve. And then sometime in the night, you dream. In the dream, the problem does not appear direct. Instead, it comes dressed as a scene, a symbol, an image that does not seem connected, until you wake and feel something click into place. Dreams can also speak in metaphor, and sometimes it is the metaphor that carries the answer. If you dream of a locked door, perhaps the dream is not telling you about the door, but about the feeling of being kept out, of needing another way in. When you wake, your mind may carry that feeling into your work, finding new ways to open what once seemed closed. Even when dreams do not hand you a finished creation, they can leave behind a shift in perspective. The dream world is a space where fear can become curiosity, where the impossible feels ordinary. Waking from that can give you a kind of courage, the courage to try a strange idea, to follow a thought that seems too unusual to work, to risk creating something new. Not all dream-born ideas are grand. Sometimes the gift is small. A few words for a poem, a color you had not thought to paint with, a change in the way you see an old problem. But small shifts can start large changes. Like seeds, they may rest quietly until the right moment to grow. The process is not magic, though it may feel that way. Science tells us that during sleep, the brain continues to process information from the day. Memories are sorted, patterns are strengthened, and irrelevant details are swept away. In this work, the brain is not bound to the order you expect while awake. It can take the curve of a seashell, the sound of rain, and the outline of a long-forgotten sketch, and set them side by side. From there, connections form, and sometimes those connections are the start of something entirely new. Some artists and inventors have learned to work with this process. They keep notebooks by their beds, ready to catch whatever drifts up from a dream before it fades. Salvador Dali even practiced a technique where he would nap while holding a metal key above a plate. As he slipped into the first stages of sleep, his muscles would relax, the key would fall, and the sound would wake him, just in time to capture the vivid, surreal images from the edge of dreaming. You may not use such deliberate methods, but you can still open yourself to the possibility that dreams hold more than fleeting visions. Before sleep, you might gently think of a question or a project you are working on, not forcing an answer, but letting it settle into your mind like a pebble sinking into still water. The brain often continues the work while you rest, weaving it into the fabric of the night. Dreams also remind us that creativity is not always about control. In waking life, you may set out to shape something with intention, guiding every step. In dreams, you are often the passenger, watching as the mind takes you somewhere unexpected. Letting go of that control can be a lesson in itself, teaching you that sometimes the best ideas come when you stop chasing them. And perhaps that is why dreams have inspired not only art and science, but philosophy and belief. They offer a space where the ordinary rules fall away, where the mind can wander without judgment. In that wandering, something new can emerge, not forced, not planned, but discovered. When you think of your own dreams, you may remember moments that felt like stories, scenes that lingered in the air of your waking thoughts. Some you may forget within minutes, slipping away like mist. Others may stay, shaping what you create, without you even noticing. A phrase that comes into your writing, a curve that appears in your drawing, a way of speaking or thinking that feels natural but carries the echo of some long-ago dream. In this way, dreams live on in your waking life, hidden in the folds of your work, your choices, your imagination. They are not separate from you, but part of the quiet currents that guide your thoughts. Even now, as you lie in the dark, the seeds of tomorrow's ideas may be forming. They may come as colors, as shapes, as stories you cannot quite name. You will carry them into the day, and perhaps into the work that will matter most to you. For dreams are not only the playground of the sleeping mind, they are its workshop, its studio, its hidden laboratory, and every night, without asking, you step into that space and begin again. And if dreams can shape what we make, then perhaps they can also shape who we are. In the next chapter, we will step from the realm of creation into the quiet, personal work of transformation, the ways dreams can change, not just our ideas, but ours. You lie in stillness, unaware of the silent cascade beginning deep inside you. The outside world fades, the room remains, the night remains, but your awareness loosens its grip, drifting toward the boundary between waking and sleep. Your breathing slows, your heartbeat settles into a rhythm softer than before, and somewhere within, the physiology of a dream begins to unfold. The first act is subtle. Your thalamus, a small structure deep in the brain, starts to filter the world away. In daylight, the thalamus is a busy gatekeeper, passing sensory messages from your eyes, ears, and skin into the conscious mind. Now it closes most of its gates. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint traffic outside, the pressure of the sheets against your skin, these are silenced or softened until they no longer call for your attention. You are left floating in a quieter space, ready for the mind to turn inward. As your body moves into sleep, the pons, a bridge-like structure in the brainstem, takes on a central role. It is here that REM sleep is triggered, the stage where most vivid dreaming occurs. The pons sends bursts of electrical signals upward into the brain's visual and emotional centers, as if raising the curtain on the night's theater. These bursts, called PGO waves, ripple into the occipital lobe, where images form, and into the limbic system, where emotions rise. The limbic system, home to the amygdala and hippocampus, stirs to life. The amygdala, often called the brain's alarm bell, lends intensity to dream events, a sudden chase, an unexpected fall, a moment of wonder. The hippocampus, keeper of memory, offers fragments from your past, a childhood street, a forgotten song, the scent of a place you once knew. In waking life, these areas respond to the world around you. In dreams, they respond to a world built entirely from within. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the region behind your forehead, that governs logic, planning, and self-control, becomes less active. This quieting explains why dream logic can feel so fluid, so unbound by the rules of waking reality. A door can lead to the ocean. A stranger can speak in your mother's voice. The dream accepts these shifts without hesitation, because the part of your brain that would question them is resting. The eyes begin their dance. Beneath your closed lids, they dart and glide as though tracking something just out of sight. These rapid eye movements, the signature of REM sleep, are not random. Scientists believe they may mirror the scanning of dream scenes, your gaze shifting from one imagined detail to another. It is as if your brain is not only building the dream, but also letting you explore it in real time. Yet while the mind roams freely, the body remains still. The pons sends signals downward to inhibit motor neurons in the spinal cord, creating a temporary paralysis known as atonia. This is the body's safeguard, keeping you from acting out the dream's movements. Without it, you might run in your sleep, reach for something that does not exist, or speak aloud to dream-born companions. Instead, your muscles rest, held in gentle suspension. Your breathing shifts during a dream. It may quicken or deepen, reflecting the scenes unfolding in your mind. A sudden sprint through an imagined forest might bring short, rapid breaths. A moment of peace on a dream shore might slow them again. The heart follows suit, responding to dream events with changes in rhythm. Though the world outside is unchanged, the inner body responds as though the dream were real. Beneath all this, hormones ebb and flow in patterns shaped by the sleep cycle. Melatonin, the hormone that guides your body towards sleep, remains elevated, keeping you anchored in the night's rhythm. Cortisol, often called the stress hormone, dips to its lowest point before gradually rising toward morning. Growth hormone, essential for repair and renewal, pulses into the bloodstream, quietly tending to the body's needs while the mind wanders. Temperature regulation shifts too. In REM sleep, your body's ability to shiver or sweat in response to changes in temperature is reduced. It is as if the dream world claims so much of your brain's attention that some waking safeguards pause. This is why the room's environment can sometimes seep into a dream. A cold breeze becoming a winter landscape, a warm blanket turning into summer sun. All these processes, the quieted thalamus, the sparking pons, the active limbic system, the resting prefrontal cortex, the moving eyes, the still muscles, the shifting breath and heartbeat, the hormonal tides are not isolated. They are part of a single, intricate choreography. Each movement supports the others, keeping the balance between rest and vivid mental activity. Scientists often speak of dreaming as if it were purely a brain event, but the truth is more whole. Your entire body participates. Even the smallest vessels, carrying oxygen to firing neurons, join the performance. The skin, though still, is alive with subtle electrical changes. Every cell in some way moves with the rhythm of the dream. The more researchers learn, the more they see dreaming as a networked act, one that draws on memory, emotion, physiology, and even the immune system. In REM sleep, certain immune functions shift, perhaps to conserve energy for the brain's heightened activity. It is a reminder that nothing within you works entirely alone. Some of these processes can be measured, electrical waves traced in an EEG, oxygen levels charted in a scan, hormone levels mapped in the blood. But the subjective side, what it feels like to dream, remains beyond the reach of instruments. The physiology explains the stagecraft, the mechanics of how the curtain lifts and the lights turn on, but it cannot fully capture the experience of standing in that dream, of feeling its textures, its light, its movement. And so, The science of dreaming is both complete and incomplete. We can point to the neurons firing, the pathways connecting, the organs responding. We can follow the choreography from the brainstem to the heart, from the eye to the skin. But the why, the meaning of stepping into a world made only of thought, is still the province of mystery. When you wake, the body's balance shifts again. The thalamus opens its gates to the outside world. The pons quiets its bursts. The atonia lifts, returning movement to your limbs. Hormone levels begin their daytime arc. You return to the light, carrying nothing tangible from the night, only the memory, if you are lucky, of where you have been. Perhaps this is the most delicate part of the dream's physiology, its ending. The processes that built the dream fold themselves away, seamless as they began. You move from a place where the body and mind work together, to build an entire world, back into one where they meet the world already made. And yet even when the dream is gone, its echoes remain. Your heart may still beat a little faster. Your breath may carry the rhythm of what you just experienced. Somewhere in your muscles, in your blood, in the neurons still settling from their night's work, traces of the dream's dance linger. It is a reminder that dreaming is not an isolated phenomenon, locked in the skull. It is an event that sweeps through you from head to toe, every night of your life. If the body is the stage and the brain the director, then the dream is the play itself. And like all plays, it can be joyful, strange, or unsettling. In the next chapter we will step into the shadows, to explore what happens when this nightly theatre turns toward you drift into sleep carrying the weight of the day, worries still warm, memories still sharp. Some burdens are fresh, born just hours ago, others are older, worn smooth by years of turning them over in your mind. The night welcomes them without judgment. Dreams take them in, turning them over in their own way, reshaping them into images, stories and feelings that speak not in sentences but in sensations. It is here that dreams can heal, not in the way of instant cures or grand revelations, but in the way of slow rain soaking deep into dry ground. A grief that feels too sharp in daylight may soften in the hazy language of dreams. You may see a loved one you lost, not as they were in their final days, but as they once were, laughing, unburdened, alive. You wake knowing they are gone, yet holding a piece of their presence that feels fresh again. Scientists have found that dreaming plays a key role in processing emotion. During REM sleep, when most vivid dreaming occurs, the brain's amygdala, its emotional alarm system, is active, yet the chemical norepinephrine, often linked to stress, is at its lowest. This means you can revisit difficult feelings without the full intensity of fear or distress that might overwhelm you in waking life. It is like walking into a storm but finding the wind has stilled and the rain has softened. Here in this safer emotional climate, the mind can approach pain it might otherwise avoid. This is not just poetic metaphor. Studies show that after people experience trauma, their dreams often replay elements of it, sometimes directly, sometimes through strange substitution. Over time, these repetitions can strip away the rawness, helping the memory lose its sting. It is a rehearsal of sorts, a way for the brain to learn that the event belongs to the past, not the present. Dreams do not erase the wound, but they help the mind stop reopening it. The body, too, may benefit from this nightly work. When stress is reduced during sleep, the cascade of stress hormones like cortisol is eased. Lower cortisol levels allow the immune system to focus on repair rather than defense, on rebuilding rather than bracing for threat. Though science is still exploring the exact links, some researchers believe that this shift contributes to faster recovery from illness and injury. In this way, the healing in dreams may ripple outward, from mind to body, in ways we cannot yet fully measure. Consider the dreams that come after long struggle. Perhaps you have wrestled with a decision, weighed a choice until the scale itself felt worn. Then one night a dream unfolds with a clarity you did not expect. It may not hand you an answer directly, but it leaves you with a sense of knowing, a leaning toward one path that feels lighter, truer. This is the brain's creative problem-solving at work, sorting through possibilities in a space free from the rigid patterns of waking thought. Healing here comes in the form of clarity, and sometimes healing dreams speak in symbols so gentle you might miss them. A locked room you could never open now has its door ajar. A dark forest path you feared now opens into a meadow. You wake not remembering the details, yet carry a shift inside you, a change you only notice when you meet the day with less heaviness. In many cultures, this idea of dreams as medicine is woven into tradition. Ancient Greek healing temples invited the sick to sleep and dream, believing that messages from the gods would guide their recovery. Some indigenous traditions see dreams as journeys where the spirit can find what the waking body needs. Even now, people speak of healing dreams as if they arrive with intention, though science would say they are the natural work of a mind that knows how to mend itself. The healing may also come through reconnection. In dreams, the boundaries of time and space dissolve. You may meet someone long gone, speak words you never had the chance to say, or receive words you never heard in life. These encounters can soothe regrets, offering a kind of closure that waking reality could not. The dream does not change the facts, but it can change the feeling, and that, in turn, can change how you carry those facts. There is another kind of healing in dreams, the kind that helps you rehearse courage. Night after night, your mind may place you in situations that mirror your waking fears. Speaking to a crowd, facing an adversary, walking into the unknown. Each time you practice, even if the dream bends into surreal direction, the next time you face such a moment in waking life, it feels just a little more familiar, a little less daunting. Healing dreams are not always gentle in form. Sometimes they take the shape of nightmares that push you to confront what you most wish to avoid. While unsettling, these dreams can also be part of the process, a way of shining light into corners you have kept in shadow. By facing them in the softened realm of sleep, you make it easier to face them in the sharper light of day. Still, the most remarkable thing about dreams and healing is how quietly it all happens. There is no conscious effort, no deliberate strategy. You do not sit down with your mind and ask it to repair you. It does this work on its own, weaving emotional threads into patterns you may never see, tending to wounds you may not even realize are there. And when you wake, the healing may not announce itself. You may simply notice that the heaviness has lifted a little. The memory that once burned now glows softly, its edges rounded. You might find yourself more patient, more steady, or more able to laugh. The dream has left no visible mark, but its work is felt. This quiet repair is not perfect. Some wounds need more than dreams can give, but even then, the nightly tending can be a companion to waking efforts, counseling, medicine, conversations, and time itself. Dreams may not replace these, but they can walk alongside them, making the path gentler underfoot. It is tempting to think of dreams as separate from life, as something that happens only in the hours we are still. But the truth is, they are part of the same current. What happens in dreams flows into waking life, and what happens in waking life flows back into dream. This exchange means that healing begun in one can continue in the other. Perhaps that is why some mornings feel different. Not because the world has changed, but because something within you has been shifted, realigned. The dream has worked in the background, like a craftsman repairing the frame of a house while the residents sleep. You step into the day on steadier ground without knowing when the foundation was fixed. And so, when you close your eyes tonight, you may not know what dreams will come. You may not remember them in the morning, but somewhere in the deep, they may be smoothing rough edges, quieting storms and planting seeds of peace. Not loudly, not urgently, but in the slow, enduring way that nature itself prefers. If dreams can heal, they can also inspire, taking the mended pieces of the self and weaving them into something new. In the next chapter, we will follow that thread into the ways dreams give rise to creativity. Sleep is often imagined as a single, simple thing. You close your eyes, drift away, and wake restored. But the truth is, it is a complex symphony, with each phase playing its part at precisely the right moment. When the timing falters, when a single note is missed, the whole piece can shift, and you feel it in your body, in your thoughts, in the way the world looks the next day. The frontier between wakefulness and sleep is a delicate one. Most nights, you cross it without noticing. But sometimes something stands in the way. The room is dark, the pillow is soft, yet your mind remains lit like a city that never sleeps. This is insomnia, the most common of the sleep disorders, and one of the most frustrating. Insomnia does not always announce itself with drama. Sometimes it is quiet but persistent, taking too long to fall asleep, waking too soon, or waking often in the night. The reasons can be many: stress, anxiety, pain, or even habits that trick the brain into thinking it must remain alert. And the more you try to force sleep, the further it drifts from you, like a bird you chase that keeps taking flight. Science tells us that insomnia disrupts the natural cycles of non-REM and REM sleep. Without enough deep sleep, the body's repair work is left unfinished. Without enough dreaming, emotional balance begins to fray. You may notice it in small ways: more irritability, a foggier memory, a sense of being slightly out of sync. It is not simply that you are tired, it is that the architecture of the night has been altered. Then there are disorders that blur the boundary in different ways. Sleep paralysis is one of the most startling. You wake, or think you do, to find you cannot move. Your eyes may open, your mind may be clear, but your body remains locked in the muscle atonia of REM sleep. For some this lasts seconds, for others, minutes. It can be accompanied by vivid hallucinations, shadowy figures in the room, whispers at the ear, a weight pressing on the chest. These visions are not supernatural, though they can feel that way. They are the brain's dream imagery spilling into waking consciousness, a brief overlap between two worlds that are usually separate. Researchers believe sleep paralysis occurs when the brain wakes before the body's paralysis has been released. It is harmless to the body, but deeply unsettling to the mind. And yet, knowing its cause can turn fear into fascination, a reminder of how thin the veil between dreaming and waking truly is. Narcolepsy sits on another edge of this frontier. It is a disorder where the brain's regulation of sleep and wake cycles is impaired, causing sudden overwhelming sleepiness in the middle of the day. For some it also brings cataplexy, sudden loss of muscle control, often triggered by strong emotions like laughter or surprise. Narcolepsy blurs the lines further, with REM sleep sometimes beginning within minutes of drifting off, or even intruding into wakefulness. The cause, scientists have found, is often tied to a loss of certain brain cells that produce hypocretin, a chemical that helps regulate wakefulness. This loss is believed to be linked to an autoimmune reaction, though research continues. For those living with narcolepsy, daily life becomes a careful negotiation, balancing alertness, managing fatigue, and explaining to others a condition that is often misunderstood. There are other disorders too, each a reminder that sleep is not a given. Restless legs syndrome, where uncomfortable sensations in the limbs ease only with movement, can make falling asleep a nightly struggle. REM sleep behavior disorder, where the usual paralysis during dreams is absent, allows people to act out their dreams, sometimes with enough force to injure themselves or a sleeping partner. Sleep apnea, where breathing stops and starts through the night, not only disrupts rest, but can strain the heart and body over time. What unites these disorders is the way they reveal the complexity of the systems that guide sleep. The brainstem, thalamus, hypothalamus, and countless neural pathways work together in precise timing. When one part falters, the effect can cascade. This is why sleep medicine exists as its own field, blending neurology, psychology, and physiology to understand and restore the balance. For those who live with these conditions, the challenge is not only physical, but emotional. Sleep is often taken for granted until it becomes unreliable. When the nights turn unpredictable, the days can feel heavier. The body still moves through the world, but part of you is always aware of the fragile frontier you must cross again each evening. Yet there is also resilience here. Many people learn ways to navigate their disorder with treatment, with lifestyle adjustments, with a deeper respect for rest. Insomnia may be eased by gentle routines that signal safety to the mind: dim lights, quiet hours, consistent bedtimes. Sleep paralysis can be softened by understanding its nature and practicing calm breathing until it passes. Narcolepsy can be managed with scheduled naps, medication, and the support of communities who share its challenges. Science continues to search for answers. Brain imaging reveals patterns in disordered sleep, guiding new therapy. Wearable technology now tracks cycles and disruptions with increasing accuracy. Medications are refined, treatments personalized, and in some cases, entirely new approaches emerge, such as light therapy to align circadian rhythms or behavioral programs to retrain the mind toward rest. Even so, there is an important truth to hold: the fragility of sleep is part of its beauty. It is not an automatic switch, but a living process, responsive to mood, health, and environment. The disorders that trouble it are also reminders of its depth and complexity. Each night, the body attempts to return to balance, to find its way into the quiet currents where repair and dreaming can begin again. When you think of this fragile frontier, you might imagine it as a shoreline. Most nights you walk into the sea of sleep without trouble, the waves closing gently around you. But some nights the tide is unpredictable, pulling back too far, rushing forward too far. Understanding sleep disorders is a way of learning the currents, of knowing when to wait, when to push forward, and when to let the sea carry you. And always there is the hope of restoration. Even on the most restless nights the body remembers what to do. It may take time, support and patience, but the rhythm can return. Like a broken instrument restrung and tuned, the machinery of dreaming can find its melody again. And when it does, you return to the heart of sleep, to the dreams themselves, which continue to hold mysteries science has yet to solve. In the next chapter we step away from disruption and return to the wonder, asking what dreams truly mean. The alarm hums, or chimes, or whatever sound greets you, it marks the shift between two worlds. You draw in a slow breath, the air cooler now than the warm current of sleep. Your body stirs, your eyes adjust to the light, and the dream world, so present moments ago, begins to loosen its hold. You may try to grasp it, the colors, the voices, the impossible landscapes, but even as you reach, the details slip away like threads through your fingers. A single image might linger, a doorway, a hand, a stretch of ocean without end, and yet, the rest is gone. Science tells us this is because the brain does not store dreams in the same way it stores waking memory. The neurotransmitters that help lock experiences into long-term storage are less active during REM sleep, making dreams delicate things, easily scattered by the first stirrings of the day. Still, what vanishes in detail may remain in essence. You wake with a mood you cannot explain, a quiet joy, a gentle melancholy, a curiosity that follows you like a shadow. This is the emotional residue of dreaming, carried forward into waking life. Neuroscientists call it dream effect, the subtle emotional tone that colors your thoughts long after the story itself is gone. It is as if your mind has told you a tale meant only to shift your perspective, not to be remembered in words. Sometimes the carryover is clear. A dream of flying might leave you feeling light all day, more willing to take risks. A dream of conflict might make you cautious or contemplative, even if you cannot recall the faces involved. These shifts are small but powerful, a reminder that dreaming is not simply entertainment for the sleeping mind, but part of the ongoing conversation between who you were yesterday and who you are becoming today. In the gentle space between waking and full alertness, you are most open to this conversation. It is why many artists, inventors and writers keep notebooks beside their beds. The moments just after waking are fertile ground, a place where logic has not yet crowded out the quiet strangeness of the night. Thomas Edison famously napped with metal balls in his hands, letting them fall and wake him just as he entered the borderland between sleep and wakefulness, where dream-born ideas could be caught. You don't have to be an inventor to benefit from this space. Simply lying still for a moment before rising can allow the faint lines of a dream to settle into memory. Some find it helps to replay what they remember in their minds before opening their eyes. Others speak it aloud as if telling the story gives it weight and shape before it can dissolve. Even if the dream fades, the act of noticing can deepen your sense of connection to your inner life. There is also a physiological shift underway as you wake. The brain's default mode network, which was active during dreaming, begins to give way to the executive networks that handle planning and decision-making. Cortisol levels rise, preparing you for the demands of the day. Your heart rate changes, your breathing steadies into the waking rhythm, and your body temperature begins to climb. All of these transitions happen quietly, seamlessly, as if the body itself understands the art of moving between worlds. And yet, even as the day takes shape, part of you may still feel tethered to where you have been. It is a strange sensation to be here and yet slightly elsewhere. You might notice it in the way you pause at a window, sensing a familiarity in the morning light, or in the way a stranger's voice on the bus echoes a sentence from a dream you thought you had forgotten. These are moments when the boundary between dream and waking thins, and you glimpse how much they influence each other. Across cultures, mornings have been treated as sacred thresholds. In some traditions, dreams are shared at the breakfast table, sifted for meaning or guidance. In others, the first words spoken after waking are chosen with care, believed to shape the day's course. Modern life rarely leaves room for such rituals, yet you can still make a quiet space for them, even if it is only a few breaths taken in stillness before the phone screen lights up. Waking with wonder is not about holding on to every fragment of a dream. It is about recognizing that you have just crossed a border few notice, from a world built entirely within you to the shared reality outside. The crossing itself is the marvel. In one moment you are surrounded by places that exist nowhere else in the universe. In the next you are touching the fabric of the day, hearing the familiar sounds of your own life. There are mornings when the transition feels abrupt, when the alarm pulls you up too fast, and the dream world is left in pieces behind you. But there are also mornings when the shift feels like a tide, carrying you slowly toward shore. You can feel both the salt water on your skin and the sand under your feet for just a heartbeat. And in that heartbeat, you remember that both worlds are part of you. Sometimes you wake with a question the dream planted, but did not answer. You carry it with you into the day, letting it shape the way you see ordinary things. A tree you have passed 100 times looks different. A conversation drifts toward a topic that feels strangely familiar. The question lingers, and with it a sense that the dream has not entirely ended. It is simply continuing in a different form. Over time, this way of waking can change how you see the mornings themselves. They become less about erasing the night, and more about carrying it forward. You begin to notice how certain dreams arrive in seasons, or how certain feelings return like migrating birds. You see patterns not as puzzles to solve, but as quiet companions in your journey. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to trust that even the dreams you forget have done their work. The mind is a patient gardener. Not every seed it plants needs to be visible. Some dreams nourish you from below the surface, shaping your days in ways you may never name. When you wake with wonder, you are simply acknowledging that something within you has shifted, and that this shift is worth honoring. And so you step into the day, carrying echoes you cannot quite place. The night has told its story, and the day will write its own. Yet both are threads in the same tapestry, woven without pause.